I was a teenager who wanted to be invisible. Because of some experiences in my childhood, at the age of 10, in grade 6, I decided that I wanted to end my life. I went home from school early, and I took some pills, and I wanted to die. As you can see, it didn't work. But also, nobody noticed. Nobody paid any attention. It went totally unnoticed. Nobody heard my cry for help. And because of that, I made some conclusions about myself, some erroneous conclusions. I decided that I didn't get noticed, so I must not be worthy of being noticed. I mean, people who are pretty, smart, and athletic, they get noticed. So I must not be pretty or smart. So I concluded I was dumb, that I was ugly, and that I was invisible. So that's how I lived my life for a long time. I withdrew, I disengaged, and I just became an observer. I tried to live my life as invisible as I could. When I was in high school, I remember distinctly walking down the halls, and I would hug the walls as close as I could. I did not want to touch anybody. I didn't want to jostle anybody, because if we connected, then maybe they'd see me. I wore big, baggy clothes that were nondescript color. I grew my bangs really long, and I would walk with my head down, and I'd look at the world through my bangs. My personal hygiene wasn't so great either. I didn't shower very often. And that's how I lived my life for a long time. I remember one time I was walking down a stairway, hugging the rail as close as I could, and all of a sudden a young man planted himself in front of me, and his name was Tom. Tom was a friend of my brother's, and he'd spent a lot of time at our house. Tom stood right in front of me, and he said, "Kathy, you know, if you'd wash your hair once in a while, you could be really pretty." I was stunned. Somebody noticed me. Somebody talked to me. You mean I'm not invisible? With those words, Tom opened a door, showed me a door that I didn't even know was there. And I thought, maybe, just maybe, I could change. Before Tom spoke to me, I had a very fixed mindset of who I was and what I was. I was dumb, I was stupid, and I was ugly, and I was invisible. But that change that he started in me, I started to see that maybe I could grow and I could become a different person. The terms fixed mindset and growth mindset come to us from a Carol Dweck. She is a psychologist, and she has her PhD in psychology. When she was in university, she said that she was obsessed with failure. She wanted to find out how people coped with failure. In order to do that, she took some students and brought them into a room one-on-one. She'd sit them at a table, and she would sit beside them or in front of them. And she would present them with a puzzle. It started off with easy puzzles, but then they would get continually harder and harder. She'd sit and she'd take notes, and she'd ask them how they felt. She said the experience that she had that day changed her life. Why? One 10-year-old boy, when he was presented with a really difficult puzzle, he got settled in his seat, scooted his chair closer, rubbed his hands together, licked his lips, and said, "Oh, I love a challenge." What? Another student who had been struggling over a puzzle that was really difficult, he was actually sweating, she said to him, "How are you feeling?" And he looked up at her and smiled and said, "Oh, I was hoping this would be informative." She said, "What's wrong with these kids? Like, are they aliens? Because you either cope with failure or you don't. What kind of a mindset sees failure as a gift?" She realized that these students knew that human qualities could be cultivated, human qualities such as intellectual skills. These students weren't just coping with failure. In fact, they didn't even think that they were failing. They thought that they were learning. Carol said that she was in a mindset where she, at that point in her life, firmly believed that human qualities are carved in stone. They don't change. You're either born smart, average, or dumb. If you're born smart, then you avoid challenges, you avoid mistakes at all costs, because that will just prove that you're not as smart as you thought you were. Struggles, mistakes, persistence, they had no room in her picture, in her mindset. She changed the focus of her studies, and she wanted to find out how mindset affects behaviors. Now, did each of you know that you actually have a belief window in front of your face? Some of us are wearing a little band, and in front of it is a window. And on that window are written all the values, beliefs, and mindsets that we have. The older you get, the more is written on your window. Maybe some of you are a little more high-tech and you're wearing like an Iron Man helmet. You know how he would, in the movie, how situations and things that would come up would be printed across his screen and he'd react to what was going on because of what was on his visor? That's just like us with our belief windows. Everything that we interact with the world is filtered through those beliefs written on our belief window, those mindsets. For example, if you felt that all foreign cars were way better than American cars, what kind of a car would you buy? You're right, you would buy a foreign-made car. If you felt that flying in an airplane was the worst way that you could travel, like this most stupid way, you're taking your life in your hands, would you ever get on an airplane? Probably not. If you believed that Dobermans were the most vicious dogs in the world, and you happened to be walking down the sidewalk and see a Doberman just running towards you, what would you do? You would run, you would jump over fences, you would leap tall buildings because of your belief. So our beliefs and our mindsets do affect our actions. In fact, the fixed and the growth mindset will determine how we face and think about failure, effort, challenges, and criticism. The New York Times wrote an article on how failure has changed over the years. We used to think of failure as just an event, something that happened. You know, we made a mistake, we learned from it, we'll grow, and we'll continue. But now it's almost like failure has taken on an identity. When you make a mistake, when you fail, people start saying, I'm a failure. That is the fixed mindset, believing that you are a failure and you can't change. The growth mindset sees us as a way to progress, to face challenges, and to move on. The fixed mindset will see constructive criticism as an attack on who they are, on what they are as a person, where the growth mindset will see it as opportunities to grow and improve. There was a PhD student that came up to Carol after one of her lectures and told her the story of how she had written an article and submitted it to a prominent magazine. That article came back with rejected stamped on it, more red on that paper than her black type, and she took the paper, folded it up, put it in a drawer and said, that's it, I'm done. I can't believe I even tried to do that. I am not as smart as I thought I was. I am never trying it again. Then she went to Carol's lecture and learned about the growth mindset. She came up to Carol and she said, I have learned that those people were just doing their job. They were trying to help me to be better. I'm going to go home, I'm going to rewrite that article, and I'm going to submit it again. The fixed mindset sees challenges in the concept of, will I fail? If I might fail, then I'm not going to attempt it. Whereas the growth mindset sees challenges as, can I do better? Can I grow with this? I have a daughter, Michelle, who in high school, let's just say she barely made it out of high school. She had a really hard time. She had been a dancer all her life, and actually her dream was to be a dancer and possibly to own a dance studio. To pursue her dream, she moved to the States. I'm from Canada, so moving to the States was where she went. And there she met and married a young man and eventually had a child. They moved to a small, small town in Utah, and he up and left her. And she was on her own, and she needed to find a way to make a living to support herself and her daughter. She said, okay, this is it. Here's my opportunity. There's a dance studio for sale, and I'm going to buy it, and I'm going to earn a living to support myself and my daughter. She struggled for about 3 years, and she found out that you can't make a good living in a small town owning a dance studio. And she knew she had to do something different. She decided to go to university to get a degree, but she was very, very frightened, very scared and nervous. Because of the experiences she'd had in high school, she didn't know if she could learn like she needed to. The school that she went to, that she applied to, had some tests that students could take so they could see how they learned and what they might need to do to change. She says, I'm on it. I'm taking those tests. I need to figure out what I can do. She took those tests and she learned that she does have some learning disabilities and she has ADD. She was able to take all the accommodations that the school could offer her, and she used those as opportunities to grow and to almost reinvent herself. The first few months of school, she'd call me up and say, Mom, I don't understand this paragraph. I got to read it to you. Let's talk about it so I can see what's going on. She doesn't need to do that anymore. In fact, this summer, she's going to graduate with a degree in community rehabilitation and disability services. The fixed mindset sees effort as something that smart people don't do. You don't need to do it. If you're smart, it just all comes easily. And if you have to put in effort, then you're not as smart as you thought you were. There was a group of people that went to a school, and they decided to put on a workshop for these, actually they were junior high kids. They put on a workshop about the fixed and the growth mindsets. They talked to the students about the brain, about how it grows, about how as you learn difficult things, you're making new pathways in your brain, and the more that you do it, the easier it gets. For any of you that have been around snow, it's like maybe on the first day of a snowfall and the snow's up to your knees, and you go out to walk through that snow, and it's hard to make that path, and you walk and you kind of stumble a bit. But if you turn around, you walk through that path again, it gets easier and easier, and you just keep walking back and forth on that path, and it creates a new system. And that's what our brains can do. There was a young boy in that class, and his name was Johnny, and he was the most hardcore, low-effort, anti-learning kid that they had. But when he learned about the growth mindset, he looked up at his facilitator with tears in his eyes, and he said, "You mean I don't have to be dumb?" From that day on, Johnny changed. He would stay up late to do his homework he'd never even attempted before. He would turn in his assignments early so that he could get some feedback on them and revise them. Johnny had learned that effort doesn't make you vulnerable. It helps you to grow. It's important to realize that we are all a combination of fixed and growth mindsets. And we're just kind of a jumble of them, and that's normal, that's natural. We'll have fixed mindsets about, say, your mathematical ability, but a growth mindset about your musical ability. And that's normal. But what's really important to realize is that to recognize what you feel like when you're in a fixed mindset, and then you can decide if you want to stay there or if you want to change. When you're in a fixed mindset, you'll often feel angry, frustrated, and start to blame people. Blame is a really good way to see it if you're in a fixed mindset. For example, in school, oftentimes students, if they're getting really poor grades and they're not doing too well, they often blame the teacher, the school, their part-time job, dog ate their homework, whatever, They blame other people. But in a growth mindset, you're going to sit there and you're going to think, okay, I'm not achieving like I would like to. What can I do that's different? What I'm doing right now is not working. There must be new strategies. Maybe I can ask somebody for help. When you're in the fixed mindset, you're going to say things like, I don't get this. I don't understand. This doesn't work. But I'm going to give you a tool that will change you from the fixed mindset to the growth mindset. It is a very powerful tool. It's very small. It's a word and it's only 3 letters. But you put this at the end of your sentences and you will be in a growth mindset. When you find yourself saying, I can't do this, say, I can't do this yet. I don't understand this yet. This doesn't work yet. And I think this applies to social skills as well. I can't hold my temper yet. I'm not a good public speaker yet. I don't make friends easily yet. That word yet frees us. It opens our minds to hope, to be able to see new pathways that we can take. It is a very powerful tool. Well, just because we change to the growth mindset, does that mean all of our problems are solved? No. There is life. We have our own personal interests and things that we like to do. But the growth mindset will help us to be able to traverse the trials of life just a little bit easier. I know that since I have been able to learn more about the growth mindset and apply it to my life, that I no longer want to be invisible. I no longer think of myself as ugly, dumb, or stupid. I know that I'm able to share my thoughts and feelings more openly with other people. I'm able to step out of my comfort zone and attempt things that I was way too afraid to even try before. I know that I can keep growing. Knowledge is power. You've been given the knowledge of the growth, fixed and growth mindsets. Now use the power of that knowledge to understand a little bit better why you do the things you do. Use the power of that knowledge to choose your mindset. Use the power of the word yet to open your horizons and to grow. Use the power of knowledge to get ready, to choose your mindset, and to grow. Thank you.